Hello, hello, hello. So excited to have you here again today. And I know you are going to love this guest as much as I do. And, we really search for great guests on Power Surge. And we had Dr. Kimberly Leonard on a couple weeks ago. And I said, who do you know that is absolutely phenomenal, that has a life story that they can share that's going to be motivational for us and going to help us be motivated, and I know I used the word twice, but to be motivated to do things that we know we want to do and need to do, but we've kind of held off on doing them. And she said, oh my gosh, my good friend Shazad, you got to have him on. He is phenomenal. So that being said, I am so blessed and so lucky. We have got Shazad, and I'm not going to even try pronouncing his last name because I will slaughter it. Shazad, come on. Tell us your last name first.
Hey, Karen. It is Carbidwala.
Okay, I'm
So
not going to even try.
yeah, no, and I said it too fast. So if you break it down, it's a car bid walla.
Oh, I can say that. Carbidwala.
Yeah, it,
Carbidwala.
it's long, but if you break it down, it's a little bit fundamentally easier to say.
No, yeah, that makes sense. See, and I gave my kids names like Joey and Megan and Spencer,
Yeah.
and I slaughter those sometimes. Yeah. Easy names, and I slaughter them. Enough about me. Well, I'm excited to hear your story, and I know you've got a organization that you run, a philanthropy organization. You've got a great book that you give donations to charity off of the proceeds. I mean, you've just got a lot of things going, and I'd like to just kind of start from where did it start to get you? I mean, you didn't arrive at the philanthropy part. You weren't born there, I'm going to guess. So you did something in your life to help get you there.
Yeah, no, Karen. Thank you for asking me, and thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. So much appreciated. And I always have a pleasure of kind of speaking about my story, just because it really started out kind of at the bottom. It really did. You know, I in my whole life I've had a great support circle. You know, great mentors, great leaders, um, and throughout that, my initial adolescence to early childhood, I made a lot of mistakes. So one of the things that you mentioned is the philanthropy organization. Um, I feel like God's wisdom and kismet brought me to where I am now, because I shouldn't say he, but they always had a higher purpose for me. And I mean, there was a lot of things, Karen, that happened to get me to where I am. And when I say a lot of poor decisions that I made, I battled with addiction for a very long time. Um, I was looking at a long prison sentence in trying to smuggle drugs across the border, and I'm still here, right? And that has catapulted me now to do the things that I want to do, because I know that I had a really good support circle, and I still made quite a few mistakes, but I was able to get through those adverse situations, and it's got me to here. And now I'm here to do good and help people in any capacity. That's my life's mission, is to help people in any way that I can. So
Well, it sounds like you had an interesting childhood. I is that a nice way of saying it? What are some of the things that, I mean, how did you get into those things, and then how did you get out of those things?
um, so getting into those things, I feel like we're a product of our environment. So
Right.
getting I was my aspirations that I had growing up, Karen, was I wanted to become a professional athlete. um, and I want to quote this phrase because I use this in my book a lot, and it's by any means necessary. So if if you think about by any means necessary, and you think of wanting, have aspirations to become a professional athlete, you know, I understand my origin and lineage is I'm Pakistani, and I was playing a sport. I was playing football, and my aspirations. I had so much love for the game that I wanted to become a professional athlete. Obviously,
Right.
that didn't happen. So I took my route to somewhere else, and I became a bodybuilder, and I became a professional bodybuilder in 2009. But the reason why I always mention this when I'm speaking to people is that because all the good things that happened when I was doing those things, I also made a lot of poor decisions by any means necessary. So what does that mean? I took my addiction started around that time when I was competitive, um, and it catapulted me to doing, uh, cascaded me to doing even worse things and getting into trouble. And like I said, we're a product of our environment, and we're a product of the people that we're around too. And I unfortunately I circled myself around a lot of people that were kind of making the same poor decisions that I was making. So I fell into that. I kind of fell into that trap, and it took a while for me to get out of it. And when I say I have great support team that are with me. Yeah, I do now. You know, I have my daughter, and when I say my daughter is my life savior, she really is, because I have to do better for her. You know, she looks at me
Right.
as kind of a role model, and I have to do the right things and act the right way. And my wife is there with me too, and she's always doing the right thing and always pushing me to make sure I have good faith and good religious structure, and those things are so important to me now. Excuse me.
Well, and your daughter, speaking of, I know we're going to make the show a little bit shorter today because we want you to go pick your daughter up from the school bus, and I think that's so important that, and I absolutely admire and love the fact that that is an important thing for you to be there for her. And not all kids have that. And I admire that and appreciate that you're there. And even myself, I have to admit, there were times I tell my kids 10 more minutes, I got to finish this work, 10 more minutes. And 10 more minutes sometimes don't come. So
I know, and Kim, that's such a good point. And I've I have been called every name in the book about being over possessive. I've been called a helicopter dad. I've been called you're too over possessive. You're too involved. And I have one kid. I have one child. I'm like, every day that she grows up is one day closer that I don't see her anymore. I mean, there's data that to support this argument. I don't. Okay, you probably know much better than I do, but that once they become 18 years old, the amount of time that you see them is like some astronomical, like just small number, like I don't know, like 3 hours for a year or something like that. I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's some stat that and I want to be in my daughter's life, uh, through thick and thin. Like everything that she's doing, I want to be involved in.
yeah, well, and I think that's amazing, absolutely amazing. Now you talked about your wife, your daughter. um, what one thing would you say helped you to start on the journey to get you to where you are today? And when did that turning point really happen? I mean, was it when you met your wife? Was it before that? Was it?
Yeah. So like I was spiraling, and I'll tell you one thing was a turning point, Karen, but it wasn't really a turning point. It didn't even get me close to the hill because so two oh no, sorry, 1999, right? Playing college ball, and decided I want to take my performance to the next level. And I thought the best way of doing that was enhancing my body and start taking performance enhancing drugs. So I decided I want to take a trip to where the source is and get as much stuff as much product as I can and try to bring it across the border. Went with two other guys, and we ended up getting caught we crossed the border and everything. We ended up getting caught in Texas, and we were looking at a very long prison sentence, 7 years, and we were wet behind the ears. We were kids, and but we were over the age of 18. Um, so I remember this to the wording almost. The judge looked at me, and she's like, "You're a baby. I, I can't put you in prison. Like I can't do that." It's like, but I'll give you a gold key. She gave me a gold key, and she's like, this is a key to your jail cell. If you ever commit another crime again, this is your key. This is you're locking. You hold the key to your jail cell. So I wore that as a token of just my appreciation for her for giving me a second chance, and I have it up in my office, and I look at it every day. It's in a frame. It's a gold key, and it started getting me up a little bit of knowing that the ramifications of me doing wrong things could get me in big trouble. But a lot of poor decisions happened after that. Um, my dad's passing was another thing that kind of lifted me up. When he passed, he came down and he sits on my shoulder as one of my angels now and guides me and directs me in doing the right things. My wife is there. As difficult that it is to be married and have a fruitful marriage, she helps me in so many ways that she probably doesn't even know. And then my daughter, she's my guiding light. She's always um, keeping me in line. Which is amazing. I have a really good support team.
Well, tell me about your book, Row. Yes, ROW, right?
Yes, yeah.
What,
So
where did it come from?
So, Roe is about a gentleman, and it's a metaphor of my life, Karen. So, it is about a gentleman who is in San Quentin prison for committing a heinous crime and looking at 2 weeks before he gets executed. So it's a pretty dark story, and that's how my life was. My life was very dark for a long time, um, and I lived in a closet. I lived in a closet. So imagine my life consisted of my bodybuilding career, which was inside of a gym where no one knew me, headphones on, worked out twice a day, took my headphones on, went straight home, and that's where my addiction was fueled. That's where my addiction started. When you're
Yeah.
by yourself, you start doing things, and when I mean by any means necessary, I thought that meant I could do whatever I wanted as long as my path is towards my overall mission, which at that time was not to help people, but to help myself and
Right.
become something that now I look back on it. I'm like, man, I'm glad I did it because it helped me to catapult me into so many different ways. But, you know, we make choices in life. Some are good, some are bad, you know. But Ro, um, so each chapter is a, a jail journal about the person that's in prison in his present tense of how he's feeling, how he's doing in solitary confinement. And then the second half of each chapter talks about my life and my childhood, my upbringing, the knucklehead choices that I made. That's actually one of the chapters of the parts in the book. It's called Knucklehead Philosophy. And then it kind of talks about when I've turned the page and doing some of the things that I'm doing now.
Well, I'd love to hear some of your knucklehead philosophies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's quite a few. If we wanted to get in depth into some of those, Karen, this
I
would.
would love to.
Oh,
So give us your favorite philosophy to start with.
yeah. So I mean, I don't know if it's so much of a philosophy, but I landed in a place where I was becoming very destructive, and what I mean by destructive is I was harming myself quite a bit. And then it gets dark. When I say harming myself, I wasn't cutting myself or anything like that, but what I was doing was injecting myself quite a bit. What does quite a bit mean? If you want to get a little bit more in detail, 6, 7 times a day.
Ouch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you just think about that, right? How
Yeah.
it, we hate shots. People don't like shots. They don't like going to the getting a flu shot, getting a COVID shot, getting a whatever shot. I was doing that 7, 6, 7, 8, upwards to 12 times a day. Just imagine. Um, and then you add in narcotics and opiates into that mix as well, right? So it's like, you know, and I was covered up. My muscles and my veins and my vascularity covered my track marks up, so no one knew. I was living, like I said, I was living inside of a closet, making these decisions, um, not having my guardians buy me and tell me that, oh, hey, these are you're making the wrong decisions.
Right.
So, those things, the people that entered my life, my father's passing, those all really, really woke me up and made me realize that I was on a path of destruction. And in order to get me out of there, God had to surround me with these type of people. I'm forever grateful, and I want to honor them, and I want to make sure that those people, I continuously do the right thing for those people.
Right. Um, what would be your philosophy on, let's say, on receiving in addition to giving back?
I've received all that I can, all that I want, Karen. I got everything. Um, you know, I'm not a big fan of monetary type of things, right? Um, so I have all the love, I have all the support. I live in Chicago now, where I'm surrounded by family and friends who really love me, and support me in a lot of ways. So um, I used to be a taker, receiving, 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 receiving. Um, Now I'm more as I want to give as much as I can. When I go, Karen, I want all my everything out of me. I wanna pass with $0 in my bank account. I want to go with all my limbs and everything. Just take whatever you want, because I'm going to be going to a higher purpose.
Well, they tell you it's better to give than to receive, but and I'm going to get your opinion in just a minute on takers and receivers. But in order to give, somebody has to receive. And there's a difference between a taker and a receiver. A receiver is somebody who does it graciously and truly appreciates what you've done with no expectations of you doing it again and without any entitlement. To me, a taker is somebody who feels entitled to it and you owe it to them and just give it to me. But that's my opinion and philosophy on it. What's your opinion and philosophy on the difference between a receiver and a taker?
Yeah, it's very, very similar, right? The right word, I think the right word they used was entitlement, right? Takers feel entitled. Um, and there's some sort of entitlement with me too. I'll be honest, Karen, like back then, yeah, I felt that entitlement. Like I should be getting for all the hard work that I'm putting, I should be entitled to get this. Life
Yeah,
isn't that simple, especially as we get older, right? Um,
right.
but now it doesn't matter. You want to be a taker, if you're working with me, you want to be a taker, and you have this sense of entitlement. As long as it is capturing my life's mission of helping people, take. It's all
Yeah.
right. It's okay. You know.
And I think that is a beautiful way for to look at it. I just look at it for me. I want to be a giver, but I want to be a receiver because that gives somebody else the opportunity to give.
That's right.
Um, so, but that's me. And that doesn't mean I am right, doesn't mean I'm wrong, doesn't mean I'm indifferent. It just means that's how I view it. Um, and I think the fact that you're a giver and you still love the takers as much as the receivers puts you on a higher plane because you're not giving just because you want to do good. You're giving even to those that may not appreciate it fully, because you're not doing it as much for them as you are doing it for yourself, in knowing that you've helped somebody else out. Would
Yeah,
that be fair to say?
absolutely. Yeah, you know what happened, Karen? When my father passed in 2009, um, I didn't know the things that he had done, all the amazing things that, and the generosity that he shared with so many people. My dad was a trailblazer. He came from Pakistan, pretty much one of the first people in our community to come. Came with very little money in the blistering Chicago cold, in the windy city. Came by himself, and he was the first. And when he passed, people that I didn't even know, that I knew were family friends, but I didn't know them intimately, would come up to me and be like, "Did you know what your dad did to me for me? Do you know what your dad did for me? Did you know what your dad did for me?" I was like, "Wow, that's a legacy that he's leaving behind." So I need to do two things. I need to preserve his legacy, which is very difficult. And I put a lot of my pressure on myself to do that. The second thing is create my own legacy. So when I pass, my daughter has like, hey, my daddy did this. And
Well,
that
what are a
gets
couple of, oh, go ahead.
no, that gets emotional for me. When I think about that, I think about deep rooted feelings, right?
Yeah.
Um, so but it's good emotion. It's not a bad thing. Karen. It's not a bad
Yeah, no, it's good. What are some of the things that people told you that you were surprised about, because you're like, I had no idea he did that?
thing. Like your father co-signed my student loans for me. Your dad came to the immigration office and fought with the immigration officers to get me into the U.S. And he got me into the U.S. Your dad um, would uh, would hand out meat to people, the less fortunate, that needed food. I mean, the list, like Karen, the list goes on and on. We could this meeting, this podcast could run for days about me telling you all amazing things that he does. So to
Yeah.
live up to that is not an easy task. I put a lot of pressure on me, maybe unneeded pressure, but it's all good stuff. So I'm going to put that pressure on myself.
Yeah. One of my quotes my little sister used to say was, an inheritance is what you leave for other people. A legacy is what you leave in other people.
Such a good saying. Wow.
So
So
I like how you're changing lives.
I mean, you're doing it too, right? Mentoring and coaching people. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy because it's sometimes like sometimes by coaching and mentoring you take on other people's stuff too. That's not easy,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
just over and over and over again. And if you're an empathetic person, you kind of walk into their shoes, and it's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough, right? I could already tell talking with you, you're such an empathetic person that can't. It's not an easy trait to have, but it's good.
Eh, no, it's not, because we do, like you said, we absorb other people's emotions and energy, and but you learn how to rid yourself of the things that are harmful and holding you back, but take the parts of that to learn from and to
Yeah.
propel yourself forward, because not all bad things have no some bad things are necessary in order to propel yourself forward.
Oh, best thing you could have said. Absolutely, yeah, 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 yeah. And Karen, some people have told me like have thicker skin, like you cry too much. That's what people have told me. I get too emotional. I'm like, screw you. Like, I don't care. Like, I get emotion because I am vested in everybody. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's this thing. Man, you remember John Gotti,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
mob boss? So he was a career criminal, but he was beloved by everybody. He was not even a career criminal; he was a murderer too. Um,
Yeah.
but why was he beloved by everybody? Because there was something about John Gotti that whenever he spoke to somebody, he made them feel like they were the most important person in the world. And I don't want that. I want them to feel like that based on actions that I've done, not by what I'm saying. Because talk is very cheap. Talk is cheap. It's actions that really, really, you know, um, tell who the person you are.
Well, I ask questions that people go, "What?" But I'm curious, what small action to you have you seen have a massive impact on somebody else?
Sorry, Karen. Can you say
What
that?
small action have you had or done that you saw had a massive impact on somebody else that you didn't necessarily expect? For instance, you smiled at somebody and later on found out that it changed their day, that they were, feeling lost and hopeless.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this may be a little bit bigger than just a smile. But when my family moved back to Chicago, we were living in Cincinnati. We moved back to Chicago. Um, we're doing quite a bit of outreach stuff in various other areas, and uh, so I was given an opportunity to like basically run an organization that did not exist. It was dormant. I wouldn't even say in dormant. It didn't exist,
Uh-huh.
and I was given the opportunity to run it. And what started off in a very small one or two people, we've built now to over 100 people within the organization. And
Wow.
we started off doing just some outreach stuff in the Chicagoland area. Now we do it all over the world. We've built wells, water wells in Pakistan. We've donated, money to various places in the world. We fed over 250 people during Ramadan, the whole our holy month.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm Muslim. Um, we we donate diapers and so much food and things like that to people in various locations to help. I mean, we just do a myriad of stuff, and it's all my team that does it all. They all go out there, but it started like in a small garage, Karen. Like like Apple, and not to compare to Apple, but um, and now it's blossomed into over 100 people that are just dedicated to helping as many people as possible, and it's so inspiring. It really is.
What was the first step you took to get that up and going?
Finding the right people and building, finding the right people that have the same characteristics that I possess as far as overall mission of helping people, and then building a strong infrastructure. You know, um, put those people in roles and responsibilities that they would be able to flourish, and that's not an easy thing to do, right? Finding people's
No.
attributes and putting them in a role where they feel empowered. Um, it was a lot of work, but now we're running like a well-oiled machine. And it's great.
Where do you find your projects? Um, I mean, how do you find out about the things that you can do and need to do? And well, basically, where do you find your projects?
Yeah, so we have different verticals within our organization. So there within our team, we have five different verticals, and each one of those verticals are different areas of service that we focus on. So, for example, the five verticals are hunger and nutrition, healthcare, environment, education, and water and sanitation. Um, so those are the five verticals, and within each one of those verticals, we find different organizations that we want to support. So some we don't have a relationship with, some we have to start having a relationship with, and some we've had a relationship for years. So it's just the work that we try to do as much as we can, um, with some of the organizations that are in the local area. But now we're doing stuff all in North America and globally, which is a really testament to the team that we have.
What can people do? It's called Project Rise, correct? Your organization. What can
Yes.
people do if they want to assist or donate or help out in any way with that?
Contact me. Contact me. It's simple as
Sim-
that. Contact me. I will share the mission. I will get you in touch with the appropriate people. What the reason why I'm saying contact me, Karen, is I want to give people perspective on some of the initiatives that we're involved in, and I want to be kind of that stage of empowering people, but then also them understanding that what we're all about, who we serve,
Mhm.
and them getting the background, say, okay, wow, this is an organization that I want to support, and I want to give back to. So we've received a couple grants from some organizations, which has been great, um, and we're always accepting gifts and donations and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I know I was blessed enough to get to go on a couple humanitarian aid missions, um, and put in a water system and help with some school systems and things like that. And I don't think I've done anything in my life that was as rewarding. I mean, I love my kids, don't get me wrong. I That was a wonderful thing to have my children and my grandkids, and but to know that these people who are truly happy people with nothing, and their gratitude for what they had, and continued to be truly happy and grateful people. um and it wasn't that I wanted them to be grateful to me for doing anything, and I didn't. That wasn't why we did it, but it was just to see the joy in their life. And there was one village, and they had 8 people that their sole job was to fetch water, and they had to walk all the way down. It was like a 4 or 5 hour hike with the cart and buckets, and walk all the way down to where the lake was, fill the bucket waters, and then take it uphill back to the village. And these 8 people just rotated and did it every few hours so that they always had water. And they did it lovingly, and they were happy to serve their community and have that be their job. And then to find where they could actually have the water pumped into them, the the sheer awe and joy for me in seeing that they had water whenever they needed it and wanted it. And I didn't want to take anyone's job away from them. And those 8 people had to have a different job at that point, but they still worked with the water. But it was just knowing that they had water whenever they wanted, and they could shower with the water, and they could clean their vegetables with the water, instead of just having it for drinking water. And so for me, that was very rewarding. And so I always tell people, go on any humanitarian aid mission you can go on, get in with any group. And like your Project Rise, I am sure that there is always a need for somebody to come and actually do some manual labor as well as mental and emotional labor. And so people, go out and do it. Trust me, you will be happy.
Yeah, and it's not it's you look at the world now, right? And it's just there's such crazy things going on, right? It's like, and there's so many places, Karen, that are outside of the U.S. that, well, in the U.S. too, right? Like, it's like people really struggle, and so many people need help. And I'm going to sound like a fortune cookie here, but like it's almost like you gotta help, as we all need to help each other and work as a team,
Yeah.
to survive. It's a different world to when I was younger, and that scares me so much. The age of technology and social media, and my daughter growing up in it and seeing some of the things that are out there now that you could easily get your hands on.
Yeah.
Freaks me out. It really does. Um, and where you could only be around your loved ones so much. You can't
Right.
for my daughter Amina, I can't hold her hands to everything. Like she has to go to school. I have to drop her off and then leave, and then pick her up, and then she's got other activities going on where I'm not going to always be around. But what other influences are coming in her space? And I think that's part of being a parent, but it's different now. There's just so much
Yeah.
craziness out there, you know.
Well, see, I find that giving to other people helps me. I'm just trying to think of how to say this right. Giving to other people for me is I do it selfishly. I do it because it helps me see the good part of humanity. Because there's so many things out there that we can look at and go,
Hmm.
and there is a lot out there that's like that. But I can see the good in humanity when I get in and get involved instead of saying, well, somebody ought to. It's like, you're right, somebody ought to. Can I? If I can, then do it.
Yeah.
How can I is a better term than can I. How can I?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, Karen, when we started Project Rise, what I told the team was, guys, there's a lot. We have in our community, we have 500 families. Now, if you think about 500 families in the DuPage County, Illinois area, it's a small pocket, but there's so many families, and people people want to be led. They don't necessarily want to lead, and there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. So
No.
you put together an infrastructure, an organization where you have the leaders that want to lead, and you have the people that want to be led. Those people that want to be led, they might be leaders in other capacities, other areas of their life, and they
Yeah.
want to be led in this capacity. As long as you empower everybody to be in a position that they will be able to execute, and the whole mission behind helping people, you could build a pretty strong team. And I feel like we've done that. There's room for improvement, of course, on Project Rise, but it's getting better. You know, we're doing as much as we can. I'm hoping we could even do more by building the team up even bigger and doing more events, donations, all in the name of helping people.
I like that. I like that. Well, what kind of things, if the listener wanted to donate something, for instance, what kind of things are best for them to donate?
Depends on what they're passionate about. That's a great question, Karen. And I want to answer it accurately. It depends on what they're passionate about. That's why I tell everybody. Everybody, Shazad, where do we donate? What places, what organizations need our support? There's a lot of organizations that need support in a lot of lines of services: water and sanitation, healthcare, education, environment. You know, there's so many different projects. What are you passionate about? Figure out their passion, and then, man, you see people excel, Karen. When people figure out their passion and know what their passion is, they attack those things, and then you just let them go with it, and you empower them, and you don't decide what their passion is for them. They figure it out, and that's a kind of a coaching mechanism, right?
And then I want you to share what your passion is and how you found your passion.
Sure. So just kind of expanding on what we were discussing, Karen, is, yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, right? The human nature when people find something that they are passionate about, and want to instill their values into something that they're so excited about, and then you see people grow and blossom. um, and as being a coach and a mentor, you kind of try to instill those foundations to people, so they're uncovering and they're peeling back the onion, and they find out, well, this is really what I'm excited about. This is what gets me going. And that's kind of that's kind of what I try to do as well. Try to find what people are really passionate about. We all are human beings. We all have our own passion. And honestly, I firmly believe that we all want to help for the gooder society too. Everybody. Um, just sometimes it gets skewed. It gets a little gray area, right? Like how I was when I was living my adolescent adulthood. Everything was kind of getting gray area, and I needed different circumstances to happen to kind of lift my spirits up and say, okay, I gotta wake up here, or else I'm gonna end up in the grave or in prison. You know,
Yeah.
both of those were a very, very big possibility.
Well, I have two questions for you. I'll just ask the first one and then I'll jump into the second one when you're done. Um, how did you find what your passion was and is, and what is your biggest passion besides your daughter?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, how did I find my passion? I think it just honestly, it's almost like God just there was something happened in 1999 when I got the gold key. I got probation, and I didn't share this initially, but I also got 1,000 hours of community service, and I never did those, Karen. I never did them the way that the judicial system wanted me to do them. So I had to get these hours done in an amount of time, get sign off by the volunteer coordinator, and at the time, someone that was working for an organization was just signing it off for me. So I didn't do the hours, and I got credit for all the stuff, and that's how I lived my life. I was just a knucklehead. I wanted the easy way out. I didn't want to help anybody unless it was helping myself. So the passion came from when things started happening. My dad passed. People that had that spirit of helping came into my life. That's when this passion blossomed into something that, oh wow, it's very spirited. This is my purpose. I really, it's a great question. Believe me, I can't tell you a pinpoint something that happened to kind of uh, do that for me. So, um,
Okay, fair enough. That's a great answer. The other one, completely different question, and it's devil advocate question. When is a person beyond too far down the spiral chain to turn around and have a fulfilling life that is a life of true joy and not a life of knuckleheadness?
yeah, no, it's good. It's a really thought-provoking question. Um, there is no, there's no. We're human beings. It doesn't exist, right? Like, um, you we all get down in the dumps at some point, some worse than others, right, based on circumstances, your environment. Some people, unfortunately, some kids are brought into a world of
Oh,
just crap,
yeah.
right, and it's sad, it's really sad. um, but there what I would like to tell everybody is we don't give up on anybody. People didn't give up on me, so why the hell am I to give up on anybody? Um, but awareness and effective communication is critical. If those people that are down in the dumps and live in the closet like I did don't communicate, saying that, hey, I need help, Karen, it's not easy to ask for help, right?
Mm-mm.
It's not an easy thing. Hey, help me, because I'm vulnerable right now. Vulnerability. A lot of people don't possess that trait of telling people, hey, I'm vulnerable. I need your help. Just don't.
Right.
Um, and if you don't get that help, can't cascade you to getting out of where you're at. And I'm vulnerable every day. I have a therapist. I have a life coach. I have amazing managers, amazing mentors. And it's hard. It's not easy to maintain all those conversations and talk about stuff you don't want to talk about and your feelings and all that crap. I don't want to talk about that stuff, but honestly, when I do talk about it, I let out emotions and I'm able to, like, okay, mitigate some of the issues that are happening in my life, you know? So it's like, yeah.
I like that answer. I like that answer. And it was playing devil's advocate because like you, I don't think there's ever a point where we can't turn around and the depths of spiraling art. I don't want to say reversible because you can't take away what's happened, but that it's the spiral can go up as easily as it can go down. And we can get other things happening in our lives that make us happy. And the emotions, that's, I think, the biggest thing people struggle with. And I've written one of my books I've written is Emotional Power, which talks about the logic behind emotion and the emotion behind logic, and that having emotions is actually a strength. And sharing and showing your emotions is actually a strength. And most people are like, told, don't be a sissy, don't, stop being, the guys especially, stop being such a girl, and the girls, stop being overly emotional. We're told that. And and so when we do get to that vulnerable place, those comments from society or our family or wherever else hits us, and we say, I can't be vulnerable and tell anyone else I'm vulnerable, because then I'm being over emotional, I'm overreacting, I'm not being strong, I whatever the falsehood is, when in reality saying I'm vulnerable and I need help is the first step in power.
And what does it do? From people, it almost shows it's not, but people think that it shows weakness,
Yeah.
right? Vulnerability shows weakness.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're really
Yeah.
good.
And with you, I see, when you had the vulnerable time, you turned it into a strength. And now you use that vulnerability that you had and that strength that you've gained to help other people who may feel vulnerable get beyond that vulnerability and get to where they can have that strength. And I don't think we ever get to completely to a point where we are not vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I, I think part of that is we feel judgment, right? When you become vulnerable, you share some inner thoughts. Sometimes those are inner demons, and then you're afraid of retribution of what might happen if you
Yeah.
reveal yourself, right? Like this was a
Yeah.
big, and like Karen, I battled with revealing my story for a very long time. The
Yeah.
depths of addiction and steroid abuse and this and that. Like, well, how are people going to perceive me after I
Right.
reveal all this information that no one ever knew? We never knew about. I kept it in the closet. Everything was hidden. Um, so I had to overcome that vulnerability because the purpose of it was if someone is dealing with addiction, they could kind of relate to somebody and say, hey, he went through it. Let me reach out and see
Yeah.
how he got over it, you know? And that's, yeah, the first step is the hardest step, and that's to expose yourself, right? Rip
Right.
that thing off. Um, so, yeah, that was a challenge for me, big time.
Well, you have been a delight and very interesting. We're going to have you on where we have more time, but I promised you I would not keep you past the time to go get your daughter. So I'm going to wrap this up and tell everybody I'm so excited Shazad was on. Jace, go ahead and put his information across again. And don't forget to join us next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Boy, get that out right. For another power surge. And join us Mondays for short Karenism, again, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And Shazad, thank you so much. You were wonderful. Mwah. We'll have to schedule on again so we can hear more about your wonderful story.
It was my pleasure, Karen. Thank you for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Take
Ciao
care.
for now. Thank you for watching today's episode of Power Surge. If you found anything informative, useful, or entertaining, please hit the like button. Now, we told you how to get in touch with the guest, but to find out more about me, my coaching, events, or resources, be sure to go to drkarenperkins.com. Again, that's drkarenperkins.com. And if you haven't already, subscribe.